Be mindful of your time this evening. My name is Abby McNulty. I'm the Executive Director of the Park City Education Foundation. We are so glad to have you all join tonight. Our goal this evening is to introduce the Education Foundation to you and as well help you make connections to our school leaders and our school district staff. It's an unusual year, and we recognize that perhaps you haven't had a chance to see Amy Jenkins' face without a mask on, or connect with Superintendent Gilday or meet Anna Stampley, who is the Peace Coordinator for Park City School District, and she will talk about her role shortly. The Education Foundation, our goal is to fund initiatives that inspire all students to reach their academic and lifelong potential. And we've been doing this work since 1986, and we're a trusted collaborator and partner for Park City School District. Annually, we invest about $1.5 million into our schools to support 8 key programs. And Mitch, if you wouldn't mind advancing the slide, that would be great. These are the programs that we support. And if you would like to dive deeper into these, you can look on our website, pcef4kids.org. And shortly, I'll put that link in the chat. And if you're interested to know specifically what we fund at each school, you can also find that on our website. Because of the pandemic and when our schools closed in March, it became crystal clear to everyone in our community how important our teachers and our schools are. The Ed Foundation has been grateful and privileged to serve our students and teachers in this time. And beyond the typical programming that we offer, we've also expanded to provide a teacher wellness initiative, an emergency relief fund to Park City School District staff, as well as families, as well as emergency relief to our first generation college students. The pandemic has certainly had many ripple effects in the community, and it's been our honor to partner with many organizations throughout the community and the Park City School District to help serve those in greatest need. We're grateful to our Scholar Circle members who are with us tonight. Scholar Circle is a leadership annual gift to the Education Foundation, and it includes special activities and events throughout the year. This year, we're reinventing those in our virtual environment, and this is one example of a benefit to our Scholar Circle members, and we invite you to learn more about that program on our website too. And I am grateful. Welcome to Dr. Jill Gilday, our superintendent, who's joining us here tonight too, and available to answer questions. We will have take 15 minutes at the end of this short presentation to answer your questions. So a little bit of housekeeping. We are recording the event tonight, so please keep that in mind. And if you have a question that comes up, please enter it into the chat button at the bottom of your screen, and Anna will moderate the Q&A. And with that, let me introduce Anna Stampley, who is a Park City School District staff member and partner to the Education Foundation.
Thank you, Abby. And thank you all for being here tonight. When I moved to Park City 3.5 years ago with my family from Scarsdale, New York, at the time, my children were entering 4 different levels of education here in the school district. My son was entering his junior year at the high school, and I have 3 daughters. One was entering 9th grade at Treasure Mountain Junior High School, and that was a very different structure than I had seen and my children had experienced in New York. And I also had a 7th grader entering Ecker Hill Middle School and a 5th grader entering Parleys Park Elementary School. And it gave me the opportunity to see the inner workings of the school district through my children's eyes at those 4 different levels. What we learned as a community and what Dr. Gilday and our Board of Education recognized was that as a community, we needed someone at the school district to answer our questions and to guide us through processes and procedures to help us to navigate the school district on behalf of our children. And that is how my position was created. I am very honored and pleased to serve in that position. And I'm looking forward to answering your questions tonight and in the future. At the end of this presentation, my contact information will be available for you to copy down so that you can contact me. As Abby said, and I would like to thank the Park City Ed Foundation for hosting these events. This is our 5th event, and it is given the community an opportunity, for those of you who could participate, an opportunity to meet your principal in a time where our environment is not available to you because of our national pandemic. So our worldwide pandemic, I should say. So I would like to thank Abby and the Park City Ed Foundation for hosting these events. As you submit your questions to the chat, please keep in mind that we'd like everyone in the audience to benefit from the answers. So if you have anything particular about your child to ask Principal Jenkins or myself, please submit that at a later date. So now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Principal Jenkins.
That sounds so formal, Anna. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. And again, want to say thank you to the Ed Foundation for hosting this event and for Anna for all of her work with us this year in her new role, asking questions and helping guide some of our communication out to our families and community, definitely in these unprecedented times. So a little bit about myself. I've been in Park City School District for 16 years. I was formerly a teacher at Parley's Park and then moved around to a couple of different schools as either an instructional coach or an assistant principal over at Treasure Mountain Junior High prior to coming to Ecker Hill. This is my 2nd year of Ecker Hill. Q4 this year will be my first Q4 in the building. So bear with us as we navigate the end of year kind of events this year. It'll be our first roll going through it. So but we are super excited to be in-person learning for our students this year and still offering remote options when students need it. So I wish my entire staff was on this call today so that I could give them a round of applause for the endless hours of communication and planning and just kind of zigging and zagging as needed with students being in and out of school related to COVID and things like that. So the lift has been heavy, but together we've made it. So we're here. It's January, 22nd week of school. I do want to again highlight Ed Foundation and their grant program currently is funding about $67,000 worth of programs at Ecker Hill specifically. These programs are woven into the school day and also extend the school day both before and after school for our students and into the summer. So the reach this year has also gone into our remote learning programs. And so able to, through emergency grants and things like that, provide some funding and materials there. So Mitch, I don't know if you want to start on slide number 1. Thank you. At Ecker Hill, we definitely believe our motto is that we are stronger as a pack, and this is how we've survived this year. We band together and we work as teams. 2 critical pieces are both the Ed Foundation and our PTO. Our PTO provides tons of support where we have gaps if we don't have resources or if we just need an extra set of hands. They're there at the ready. So Benita Hutchinson is our PTO president this year, and a big thank you to her and her team for putting things together for us, including recognition for our teachers through lunches and things like that they've provided. And then also to kind of piggyback on the Park City Ed Foundation's wellness initiative for teachers. We are redesigning our wellness center in our school for both students and teachers, so that we can carry that environment into the school day as well. So we always love when programs can kind of be in line with each other, because it just sort of amplifies the support for our students. Okay, a little bit about Ecker Hill. Mitch, why don't we go to slide 2? So Ecker Hill is unique, and the reason it's unique is because we have what we call the middle years learners, or the middle years students. They're not elementary students anymore, but they're not quite ready for high school and beyond. And so our job is really to transition them from one to the next. And there's a couple of ways that we do that. We want to always make sure that middle level education needs to be responsive, it needs to be challenging, empowering, equitable, and engaging, specifically for the age group from 10 to 15-year-olds. Those organizations that you see on your screen there, the AMLE, which is the Association for Middle Level Education, Utah Schools to Watch, and the National Schools to Watch, are all kind of organizational structures that we align to make sure that our students and our programming needs are meeting each other. The needs are being met. Excuse me, I can't talk today. We do have we're completely proud of this, to be designated as a Schools to Watch in the state of Utah. We are one of 15 middle schools in the state of Utah to be designated through Schools to Watch. Our original designation started in 2013, and our latest redesignation came again in 2019. It's something we do every 3 years. If you are familiar with how schools go through like an accreditation process, that is very similar for Utah Schools to Watch. You go through a review process, and then the Schools to Watch board votes on your redesignation. Pretty exciting stuff. I want to go a little further into that on the last slide here, Mitch. The Schools to Watch pillars really focus on these things here on the screen: academic excellence, developmental responsiveness, social equity, and then our organizational support. And so as your children entered into Ecker Hill, whether they are current 6th graders or 7th graders, or if they've been with us for 2 years now as current 7th graders, you'll recognize some of these supports and kind of structures that we have in place that are different than in the elementary schools, and still different than the junior high and high school. Ecker Hill is the first school in the Park City School District that went completely standards-based. That was a huge transition, but it was also it was done at the right place for those learners, because our students, as you noticed earlier, really do need responsive and challenging standards to try and reach. And so if we had that growth mindset and that standards-based learning philosophy embedded in everything we do, our students are more responsive and motivated. We maintain high expectations, and we make sure that we have appropriate interventions and support for our students. One of the challenges of being a secondary school is making sure our interventions are very fluid. And I think that's something that we're continually working on, is making sure that a student has access to courses if they're no longer needing intervention support. And so that means other electives and things like that. So we're always very conscious of making sure that they're not restricted in their course selection and things like that. Other areas that we focus on at Ecker Hill, we want to make sure that we always are looking at things that are interesting and relevant to the students in their coursework. A great example of that would be the 7th grade CCA program, which moves our students right into the CTE pathways that continue on through junior high and high school, and can culminate with PC CAPS at the high school, which is just a stellar program for all of our students to be able to start to build that experience pre-college and career. The other area that we want to make sure that we're meeting our students' needs, not only academically, but social and emotionally, is with our advisory and teaming. Our school really believes that advisory, that homeroom idea, is critical at this stage, because our students aren't fully developed with their executive functioning skills, or they may have, just need to have that safe spot to land every day. And so our advisory really puts one adult in front of every child to make sure they really know the needs of that child. We also continue that with our teams. So your student is placed on an academic team. It's usually a color team. If you hear your child say, we're on the 6 red or the 7 blue or 7 silver, those teams are how we make sure the needs of our students are met and are consistent throughout the school day. So we have team meetings twice a month where we discuss student needs and things like that. And that is really a critical conversation, because when consistency and structures are in place, kids excel, and that's super important. Moving on to social equity. Again, I think because of our unique needs of our students in the middle level, we need to make sure that as they're developing their own sense of self, that they feel like they're included no matter where they are in their academics or in their social emotional learning. We want to make sure families are involved. And we really rely a lot on restorative practices to make sure students understand how to interact with each other, and also how to repair harm when something maybe went awry, whether that was between people or with an event that happened. And so instead of focusing on any sort of, major punitive things, we always try and look for that learning that's in there. Our counseling staff, along with our assistant principals, work really closely to make sure that students are involved in mediations when there's a conflict, that there's an inclusionary space where they can come and talk about things that might be bothering them, and then just access to our amazing counseling staff just to support the student throughout the day. And then finally, our organizational support. One of the things that we're always making sure we're doing is staying in alignment with the vision of both the Park City School District and the Association for Middle Level Education and Schools to Watch. So looking at the current thoughts, the current initiatives, where we're headed with master planning, things like that is always very important. We want to make sure, of course, that resources are allocated properly. Our partnerships, like I mentioned, with the Park City Education Foundation, with the Christian Center in Park City here, and with other agencies, really do support the whole child in our school. And then just on a focus, just like we ask our students, we're looking at that growth mindset. We want to grow our excellence and continue to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our students every day. This year's been a challenge. We've had new needs. And so I think that we've really had to dig deep and think about what's really important in what we do every day at school to make sure our students come to school feeling really safe and that they can stay healthy and then continue to learn and grow. So with that, I'm ready to transition to the next section, which I think is to answer some questions.
Yes, thank you, Principal Jenkins, for that wonderful description of Ecker and introducing yourself to everyone on this phone call. There is a question from Laura and Joe Croney. Hi there. Would it be possible for Principal Jenkins to post weekly video updates for families for the rest of the year? As a new family, we have felt a bit lost and out of touch. We have other kids at McPolin and Treasure, and those leaders are posting videos weekly, monthly, which has helped communicate information a ton. I think it would help create more of a sense of community for new and existing families, especially during the pandemic. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's something we can definitely look into. Weekly might be a stretch to start, but let me look at how we can get that organized and structured. I'm going to call Bob Edmonston and Caleb right after this call and give them a hard time for setting the bar so high. I think Mr. E even dances on some of his videos. So, but I absolutely think that's something we can do. We do video announcements for our students every Monday. And so I'm happy to kind of incorporate those into our process as well. But Anna, maybe you and I can work together on the best way to organize that and get that out. So Mr. and Mrs. Croney, thank you so much for that suggestion. I'm glad to hear that's successful for both your McPolin and Treasure Mountain students.
This is your opportunity to ask myself or Principal Jenkins or Dr. Gilday any questions. Laura and Joe Croney say thank you very much. So if anyone has any other questions, just put them in the chat. Abby, you can ask a question in the meantime, maybe?
Sure.
I'm back in my 7th grade classroom when I was teaching, and you would say questions. Just sit there.
Well, I was a high school math teacher initially.
I'll ask you a question, Amy. Tell me Well, first of all, I want to say thank you as a parent. Personally, I have a seventh grader at Ecker Hill who has just really flourished this year, and feels he just loves going to school every day. It's so wonderful. So thank you. And to your entire team. So my question for you is, I know it's a challenging year, but what have been the silver linings?
That's such a good question. First of all, I'm just so thankful that we had the resources we needed at the beginning of the year to open safely. And also the time with our staff to be able to put together plans that allowed them to feel safe. So I would say the silver lining there was just some thought about time and plans ahead of time. But I think as the year has gone on, the best way I can describe it is it really solidified a public school's role in a community. And for me as a principal and a new principal, to understand how we are really a hub to so many other pieces of, I'll use the word society here. We are connections to services, we're connections to each other. It really is, it's been pretty incredible to see that kind of become what is the priority for us. It really is, the importance of having a school in a community that really can help families connect to each other and or to outside services and have their needs met. So I'm incredibly grateful that we can continue to do that work this year and do it in, like I said, do it with our students in the building. Education is so very important, but I think we also realized in order to educate our students, there were so many other things that we had to make sure were in place at the same time.
Thank you, Amy. From Mary Krista Smith, we are new to standards-based grading. Can you explain the difference between the 1 to 4 ranking and the A through F ranking?
Oh, good question. So the main difference that I would say, based on my experience as both a mom and a teacher, would be that the A to F or percentage-based ranking typically is based on percent of questions or percent of content you got correct. And then it would translate to an A through F scale. If I remember correctly, that scale was actually originally developed for ranking and sorting Army recruits. I don't know if you knew that. And so if you passed the test with a high score, you were put into the A class and you were moved on to officer. You can imagine what the F class was tasked with doing, right? In the Army. So that's the history of the A through F traditional grading scale. A standards-based scale looks at the skill or concept that the student has to master. And so the scales that were developed at Ecker Hill were based on the work of and I can't think of his first name, maybe Dr. Gilday can help, but Dr. Marzano. And the scale was developed so that a 3 was considered proficient. And so if the student is able to demonstrate through evidence, whether it's an assessment or a performance of some sort, that they have mastered or are proficient at that skill, they would get a 3. And then of course, because we know that there are ways to extend beyond just that level of the skill, we wanted to also be able to have that reach, which is a 4. And the 4 would be typically in Marzano language, a way of applying or synthesizing that information in a new or novel way. Anything below a 3 typically indicates that the student has foundational knowledge of that skill, or needs assistance in performing the skill or understanding the concept. And so, and then a 1 obviously would be, needs, more teacher help than student, is able to do kind of thing. So it's kind of a balance of power there. And then last year, interesting, because we did have some students who were not able to attend school online during Q4, we chose to put a 0 on our scale. And typically we kind of balk at a 0 and think, oh, that means an F. But our 0 really just means there's no evidence. And we just wanted it as a placeholder, as record keeping, to say at this time when we issued this grade or issued this score, the student had not yet produced evidence of their learning. And typically there's a little bit of a story behind that. So it allows the teacher, the next teacher, or a colleague to look at that and say, tell me more about why that student had a 0. And it kind of promotes a conversation, if you will. So standards-based really focuses on the student's ability to move through progressions of learning and not just a clear percent right, number wrong kind of thing, which is a traditional scale.
Thank you, Amy, for that. Also, Mary Krista says, my son loves Ecker and his
good.
teachers.
I'm telling you, they are the real rock stars.
From Kelly Manning. Thank you for the information. With some kids online and others in school, are the kids meeting the educational standards at the same rate? And what is the culture like this year without lockers and some of the normal middle school things?
Yeah, that's a good question. So to answer the question about the remote learners, our remote learners are taking our benchmark assessments just like our in-person learners are, so that we can monitor their progress as well. So they're just finishing up their mid-year assessment right now and completing those. Our 7th graders that are in Utah Students Connect, that curriculum is all aligned to Utah standards. And so if they are progressing at a different they may be progressing differently, but not at a different rate, if that makes sense, knowing that by the end of the year, we'll all end up in the same place. So the sequence of units and things like that, the sequence of standards they teach may be slightly different than what we're doing in-house. Our remote learning for 6th grade, however, is identical to what's being done, obviously, but in a remote environment. The standards are the same, the units progress the same. So you'll see a tighter alignment there. Second part of that question, remind me now, Anna, sorry.
Oh, and what is the culture like this year without lockers and some of the normal, quote unquote, normal middle school things?
Oh, they still find ways to congregate. Our building has lots of great open spaces, and so our students, as they're kind of getting themselves to class and things like that, usually you'll still see the middle school behavior where they like to be with their friends and they wait for each other outside of class or by the door as they're coming in and things like that. So we do try and allow that social time, but we don't allow big groups to gather. So I kind of shoo them off to their advisory class or say, go walk your friend to advisory and then get to yours or whatever. So I don't think it's really changed. That's so in their DNA as a middle schooler. I don't think not having lockers is going to steer them that way. But I honestly think the things that we've not been able to do haven't really had a lasting effect on these kiddos. I think they're just so very appreciative of being able to be in the school, seeing their friends, eating lunch, that kind of thing, in classes with each other. So I think there's so many more positives with what we are able to do.
Thank you. And thank you all for these questions. We have a couple of more minutes. And if you don't get your question answered on this chat tonight, then please feel free to reach out to either myself or Principal Jenkins. And here's my contact information for all of you to take down if you would like. So again, you can reach out with questions. If I can't answer them, I will absolutely direct you to someone at the district or at your school who can. And I want to thank Principal Jenkins and Dr. Gilday and Abby and Mitch and all of you for joining us tonight. And thank you so much for being part of this wonderful community. And if this is the way we have to do it now, it's the way we have to do it now. And we will look forward to seeing you again soon.
In 3D. Really,
in 3D, yes.
And I need to shake hands or give hugs or something, right?
Yes.
Soon, it's coming soon.
It is coming soon. Again, thank you all for joining us tonight, and have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.